Okay, friends. So we are going to do things a little bit differently this time. We are going to start on the top of page 128. So if you're not there, get there with me. What we're going to do in these pages. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you any questions. We're reading pages 128 to the very top of 133. But what I want you to do at the end, it's going to pop up as a question. And it's going to ask you to list 2 quotes which explain how Piggy is acting differently while Jack is gone. So throughout these pages, I'm going to need you to kind of make a note of 2 quotes that show how Piggy is acting differently while Jack is gone, and you're going to explain what they reveal about Piggy. So that question is going to pop up at the end of the reading, but this video is going to be just me reading pages 128 to 133, the very top of 133. Okay, friends, so we're going to start on the top of 128. This is after Jack has just stormed off. Piggy was indignant. "I've been talking, Ralph, and you just stood there like..." Softly, looking at Piggy and now seeing him, Ralph spoke to him. "He'll come back. When the sun goes down, he'll come." He looked at the conch in Piggy's hands. "What?" "Well, there!" Piggy gave up the attempt to rebuke Ralph. He polished his glass again and went back to his subject. "We can do without Jack Merridew. There's others besides him on this island, and now we really got a beast. Though I can't hardly believe it. We'll need to stay close to the platform. There will be less need of him and his hunting. So now we can really decide on what's what." "There's no help, Piggy. Nothing to be done." For a while they sat in a depressed silence. Then Simon stood up and took the conch from Piggy, who was so astonished that he remained on his feet. Ralph looked up at Simon. "Simon, what is it this time?" A half sound of jeering ran around the circle, and Simon shrank from it. "I thought there might be something to do. Something we..." Again, the pressure of the assembly took his voice away. He sought for help and sympathy and chose Piggy. He turned half toward him, clutching the conch to his brown chest. "I think we ought to climb the mountain." The circle shivered with dread. Simon broke off and turned to Piggy, who was looking at him with an expression of derisive incomprehension. Kind of like, what? "What's the good of climbing up to this here beast when Ralph and the other 2 couldn't do nothing?" Simon whispered his answer. "What else is there to do?" His speech made, he allowed Piggy to lift the conch out of his hands. Then he retired and sat as far away from the others as possible. Piggy was speaking now with more assurance and with what, if the circumstances had not been so serious, the others would have recognized as pleasure. "I said we could all do without a certain person. Now I say we got to decide on what can be done, and I think I could tell you what Ralph's going to say next. The most important thing on the island is the smoke, and you can't have no smoke without fire." Ralph made a restless movement. "No go, Piggy. We've got no fire. The thing sits up there. We'll have to stay here." Piggy lifted the conch as though to add power to his next word. "We got no fire on the mountain. But what's wrong with a fire down here? A fire could be built on them rocks, on the sand even. Would make smoke just the same." "That's right, smoke! By the bathing pool." The boys began to babble. Only Piggy could have had the intellectual daring to suggest moving the fire from the mountain. "So we'll have the fire down here," said Ralph. He looked about them. "We can build it just here between the bathing pool and the platform, of course." He broke off, frowning, thinking the thing out, unconsciously tugging at the stub of nail with his teeth. "Of course the smoke won't show so much, not be seen so far away, but we needn't go near the..." The others nodded in perfect comprehension. There would be no need to go near. "We'll build the fire now." The greatest ideas are the simplest. Now that there was something to be done, they worked with passion. Piggy was so full of delight in expanding liberty in Jack's departure, so full of pride in his contribution to the good of society, that he helped to fetch wood. The wood he fetched was close at hand, a fallen tree on the platform that they did not need for the assembly. Yet to the others, the sanctity of the platform had protected even what was useless there. Then the twins realized they would have a fire near them as comfort in the night, and this set a few little ones dancing and clapping hands. The wood was not so dry as the field they had used on the mountain. Much of it was damply rotten and full of insects that scurried. Logs had to be lifted from the soil with care or they crumbled into sodden powder. More than this, in order to avoid going deep into the forest, the boys worked near at hand on any fallen wood, no matter how tangled with new growth. The skirts of the forest and the scar were familiar, near the conch and the shelters, and sufficiently friendly in daylight. What they might become in darkness nobody cared to think. They worked, therefore, with great energy and cheerfulness. Though as time crept by, there was a suggestion of panic in the energy and hysteria in the cheerfulness. They built a pyramid of leaves and twigs, branches and logs on the bare sand by the platform. For the first time on the island, Piggy himself removed his one glass, knelt down, and focused the sun on the tinder. Soon there was a ceiling of smoke and a bush of yellow flame. The little uns who had seen few fires since the first catastrophe became wildly excited. They danced and sang, and there was a partyish air about the gathering. At last, Ralph stopped work and stood up, smudging the sweat from his face with a dirty forearm. "We'll have to have a small fire. This one's too big to keep up." Piggy sat down carefully on the sand and began to polish his glass. "We could experiment. We could find out how to make a small, hot fire and then put green branches on to make smoke. Some of them leaves must be better for that than the others." As the fire died down, so did the excitement. The little one stopped singing and dancing and drifted away toward the sea or the fruit trees or the shelters. Ralph dropped down in the sand. "We'll have to make a new list of who's to look after the fire. If you can find them." He looked round. Then for the first time he saw how few big uns there were and understood why the work had been so hard. "Where's Maurice?" Piggy wiped his glass again. "I expect—" "No, he wouldn't go into the forest by himself, would he?" Ralph jumped up, ran swiftly around the fire, and stood by Piggy, holding up his hair. "But we've got to have a list. There's you and me and Sam and Eric and—" He would not look at Piggy, but spoke casually. "Where's Bill and Roger?" Piggy leaned forward and put a fragment of wood on the fire. "I expect they've gone. I expect they won't play either." Ralph sat down and began to poke little holes in the sand. He was surprised to see that one had a drop of blood by it. He examined his bitten nail closely and watched the little globe of blood that gathered where the quick gnawed away. Piggy went on speaking. "I seen them stealing off when we was gathering wood. They went that way, the same way as he went himself." Ralph finished his inspection and looked up into the air. The sky, as if in sympathy with the great changes among them, was different today and so misty that in some places the hot air seemed white. The disk of the sun was dull silver, as though it was nearer and not so hot, yet the air stifled. "They always been making trouble, haven't they?" The voice came near his shoulders and sounded anxious. "We can do without 'em. We'll be happier now, won't we?" Ralph sat. The twins came, dragging a great log and grinning in their triumph. They dumped the log among the embers so that sparks flew. "We can do all right on our own, can't we?" For a long time, while the log dried, caught fire, and turned red hot, Ralph sat in the sand and said nothing. He did not see Piggy go to the twins and whisper to them, nor how the three boys went together into the forest. "Here you are." He came to find himself with a jolt. Piggy and the other two were by him. They were laden with fruit. "I thought perhaps," said Piggy, "we ought to have a feast, kind of." The three boys sat down. They had a great mass of fruit with them and all of it properly ripe. They grinned at Ralph as he took some and began to eat. "Thanks," he said. Then with an accent of pleasured surprise, "Thanks." "Do all right on our own," said Piggy. "It's them that haven't no common sense that make trouble on this island. We'll make a little hot fire." Ralph remembered what he had been worrying him. "Where's Simon?" "I don't know." You don't think he's climbing the mountain?" Piggy broke into noisy laughter and took more fruit. "He might be." He gulped his mouthful. "He's cracked." Crazy is what that means. Simon had passed through the area of fruit trees, but today the little ones had been too busy with the fire on the beach, and they had not pursued him there. He went on among the creepers until he reached the great mat that was woven by the open space and crawled inside. Beyond the screen of leaves, the sunlight pelted down, and the butterflies danced in the middle, their unending dance. He knelt down, and the arrow of the sun fell on him. That other time, the air had seemed to vibrate with heat, but now it threatened. Soon the sweat was running from his long, coarse hair. He shifted restlessly, but there was no avoiding the sun. Presently, he was thirsty, and then very thirsty. He continued to sit. Okay, everyone, so what I want you to do on pages 128 to the very top of 133, I want you to find two quotes and then explain how Piggy is acting now that Jack has kind of left the group. Do that now.